by the waters of the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal, the great subcontinent of India juts out from the Asian landmass. Over the past 4,000 years, invaders from Europe, the Middle East, and Central Asia have each contributed to the rich mixture of myth and imagery that lies at the heart of present-day India. India is always changing, and yet remains unchanged. The contrasting cultures of its 550 million people, speaking 700 different languages, and practicing countless religions, form an exotic lure which has drawn and fascinated travelers for centuries. This is the ancient city of Agra, mentioned by Ptolemy in the 2nd century AD. Being well to the north, it felt the full impact of the invading cultures, and the Mughal emperors made it their capital. Although its importance has now diminished, Agra's streets, like city streets in other lands, still bustle with noise and activity. The confusion is the same, but the tempo is different. Here the wheels of commerce move at the placid pace of the beast of burden, and muscles provide the motive power. This is the land of the beast of burden. They form an essential part of everyday life. Horse-drawn tongas wend their way through the twisting streets. Heavily laden donkeys move builders' rubble, and bullock carts take the farmers' goods to market. In the ancient Kinari Bazaar, the confused and rambling streets are little changed since the reign of Akbar the Great. Here, daily life has a timeless quality, and scenes from the past are commonplace. Agra has a tradition for the working of sandstone, but now, instead of the exotic carvings, the need is for workaday grindstones, or perhaps for a pestle and mortar. In these surroundings, the present is submerged in the past. Amid the hubbub, the feeling is unmistakable. The traveler has gone back in time. He has escaped into yesterday. Sudden glimpses of romantic Mughal buildings preserve the illusion and take the mind back to the now deserted city of Fatehpur Sikri, described by an English traveller in 1574 as being much greater than London. Its construction took only 6 years, but due mainly to a shortage of water, Akbar lived in his new capital for only 16. Within a few years, the palaces and mosques were deserted and became the haunt of wild beasts. Leopards and hyenas roamed in the streets. Jackals howled in the empty palaces, and the hoot of the owl reverberated through the corridors. It became the silent witness of a vanished dream, a body without a soul. At the start of Akbar's reign, Fatehpur was an insignificant town inhabited by stonecutters. To this town came a mystic, Salim Chishti. Akbar, whose children had all died in infancy, badly wanted a son, and came to ask the holy man's blessing. When a son was born, Akbar named him Salim after the holy man, and decided to move his capital to this town. Today, set in the middle of a vast red courtyard, can be seen the white marble mausoleum of the mystic. It is visited by pilgrims from all over India and Pakistan. Women come to ask for the gift of children, and it is the custom to tie a thread on the marble screen and to make a wish. How many talismans of hope must have been left in this place over the centuries. The craftsmanship created so many years ago is a miracle in marble, said to rival that of the Taj Mahal. The main entrance to the courtyard is through the massive Gate of Victory, soaring 176 feet into the sky. In this setting of decaying medieval splendor, It is fitting that traditional players and entertainers should demonstrate their skill and daring. Pythons slide silently over the grass, and cobras rise from their baskets at the ancient sound of the snake charmer's pipes to engage in mock battles with the trained mongoose. After leaving Fatehpur Sikri, Akbar moved his court to the Red Fort in Agra, where he lived until his death in 1605. The greatest monument of all, the Taj Mahal, was built by his grandson, Shah Jahan, as a mausoleum for his favorite wife, Mumtaz Mahal. Not long after its construction was completed, Shah Jahan was ousted from power by his son and confined in the Red Fort. He spent his last days on a balcony overlooking the Taj Mahal, a poignant reminder to Shah Jahan of the love and power that had once been his. Subjected to constant lyrical descriptions, most travelers visit the Taj Mahal with faintly hostile feelings. But this is forgotten at the first glimpse of its strange, haunting beauty. Appreciation of its loveliness is a personal experience that cannot be described in words, nor captured by the camera. The Taj is a vision in marble, gorgeous in all its moods. Emerging with early morning light, its minarets and domes touched with soft pink, it reaches its full resplendent brilliance with the advancing hours. The mood in the evening is one of reflection, and in the moonlight it is seen in cool, chaste elegance. On the opposite bank of the slow-moving Yamuna River lies another exquisite example of Mughal craftsmanship. Itimud ad-Dawla was the first experiment in building in white marble using inlays of semi-precious stones, and it was therefore a forerunner to the Taj Mahal. It is the final resting place of the grandparents of Mumtaz Mahal, in whose honor the Taj Mahal was built. This mausoleum was raised by their daughter, Nur Jahan, who is the favorite wife of the son of Akbar the Great. The craft of inlaying marble is still carried on in Agra today. Small boys, using traditional tools, gouge out the soft white stone to receive hand-ground pieces of malachite, cornelian, lapis lazuli, and other semi-precious stones. For the past 90 years, the old traditional methods have been used in the building of this Sikh temple. Perhaps the craftsmen sometimes cast their minds back 3 centuries to those 20,000 men who labored for 25 years to create an inspiration for others to follow. Thoughts of the past crowd the mind as the Mughal monuments with their legends of romantic splendor are left behind. Agra is surrounded by the vast flat plains of central India. In the endless fields stretching to the horizon, the grain is still harvested by the sickle, threshed by the feet of the ox, and winnowed by the wind. Here the inhabitants seem diminished by their surroundings, and their lives remain linked to the fundamental rhythms of birth and death, sunrise and sunset, growth and decay. As the train clatters its way across the countryside, it opens up ever-changing scenes of primitive villages, romantic ruins, and parched, exhausted fields. In total contrast, across the great mountain divide of the Himalayas in the far north, lies the fabled land of Kashmir. Forged from the towering mountains by the timeless action of water, life in the principal town of Srinagar centers on the placid waters of Dal Lake and the Jhelum River. Jhelum River flows through the center of Srinagar, whose 9 bridges give their names to the streets that cross them. The city is 2,000 years old, and with its wooden buildings, latticed windows, and narrow crowded streets, is strongly reminiscent of the Middle Ages. Historically, the Kashmiris have never been able to resist the invaders who coveted their beautiful land. Even today, their country has been divided between India, China, and Pakistan, and is the subject of constant dispute, in which the voice of the Kashmiris themselves is seldom heard. Life in the city centers around the river, whose strong currents, in contrast to the still waters of Dal Lake, require determined efforts from the rowers with their heart-shaped paddles. Here too mechanical power is a rarity, and propellers seldom churn the muddy waters. On Dal Lake, the shikaras of the floating vendors intercept any likely customers with offers of goods that range from vegetables to toothpaste, or from jewelry to fur hats. During the severe winter months, the deep snow and intense cold brings all normal life to a standstill. Imprisoned in their houses by nature's seasons, the Kashmiris pass the long hours in working her designs into a variety of handicrafts. The visitor is tempted by articles of papier-mâché, hand-woven carpets and embroideries, beaten copper and silverware, and a bewildering choice of objects carved in walnut wood. The skills of wood carving are extended to the palatial houseboats for which Kashmir is justly famous. Intricate designs carved into the ceilings and decorative work help to create an Arabian Nights atmosphere to which local furnishings add a deft touch. The so-called luxury class houseboats are over 100 feet long and boast the full amenities of a modern home, as well as a permanent staff of 3. Most houseboats can be poled from place to place. Some, like this one, are moored alongside artificial islands created in the middle of the shallow lake. The gardens so formed are ideal for a universal game of chase. Childhood is short for a Kashmiri girl and usually ends at the age of 13 with her arranged marriage. Kashmir abounds with lakes filled by the melting snow from the surrounding mountains. Wular Lake is the largest freshwater lake in India and is fed by 5 rivers. Despite the air of tranquility, life is hard in this rugged land. For much of the year, the fields and grazing grounds lie deep under the snow, and farmers have little time to waste in cultivating their fields. But this is springtime, and the land is splashed with color. The vivid yellow of the mustard fields contrasts with the gentle pink of the almond blossom, and the soft white snow of the apple orchards is repeated on the hillsides by the hardy hawthorn. In these mountains, a few isolated towns blend into their surroundings, their houses packed together as if seeking protection from the elements. But for the most part, the country people live in small hamlets or in individual crofts set among the pines. These are usually 3 stories high, with the domestic animals at ground level, the householders on the first floor, and winter fodder in the loft. In contrast, the shepherds' huts are built mostly below the ground, and in winter they are completely covered in snow. The mountain pony is still the most common and ideal form of transport through the rugged countryside. Even for the novice, there is a thrill to be experienced in riding through the cool, pine-scented air, disturbed only by the natural sounds of the creak of harness or the rush of water. The keen mountain air seems to generate keen appetites, and what better way to satisfy them than by dining out in the midst of such beautiful scenery. Impressive views of pine-clad valleys and snow-covered mountains are opened up as the route climbs higher and higher. But even the distant peaks are now beginning to react to the growing warmth from the sun, and the rivers are starting to rush with the icy waters of the spring melt. The swelling streams are rich in food, and the greedy trout, hungry after the long winter fast, are easy prey for the fisherman's rod. But spring has not yet reached the higher slopes. Gulmarg is 8,700 feet above sea level. Its name means meadow of flowers. But at this time of year, the meadow is still blanketed by snow, and the flowers are nowhere to be seen. The ponies pick their way between the drifts and deposit travellers at the simple lodge to thaw out in front of a blazing log fire and to enjoy a cup of steaming coffee. The lodge can also supply a colourful assortment of warm clothes to keep out the cold on a hilarious toboggan ride over the surrounding slopes. With its pointed turrets and its setting in the pines, the lodge has a slightly brooding air when the swirling clouds blot out the sun. The resident ravens too seem to fit the scene, but they wish only to share your lunch. Sonamark lies on the route which leads to Ladakh, and thence to what used to be Tibet. The snow lies deep on either side as the road twists and turns through the gorges of the Sindh River. Only 3 passes give access to Ladakh, and the lowest is 11,500 feet high, and is only open for a few months of the year. But Ladakh has been made even more remote by futile political wrangling, and today the road is closed at Sonamark. It has been closed for 25 years. The name Sonamark means golden meadow, and legend has it that somewhere in the valley is a well whose water has the property of being able to change anything into gold. Like Gulmarg, the meadow is still beneath the snow, and at 9,000 feet the wind is cold, for spring comes late at this altitude, and all around the pine trees on the snowy slopes recall scenes of Christmas. Far above, etched against the blue sky, are the glistening peaks that surround the valley. They seem remote from the everyday world, and yet it is from here that Kashmir gets her beauty. For these are the craggy giants of the Himalayas, whose melting snows feed the rivers and lakes of the fertile valleys lying far below. The Mughal emperors came here too, and built terraced gardens full of birds, fountains, and flowers. For centuries men have come to Kashmir to be moved by her lyrical beauty, and to feel, as did the Persian poet who wrote, "If there is a paradise on earth, it is here, it is here, it is here."